Hey everyone, this is James from Mission, and today we're going to be talking about making adjustments to the VM Pro volume pedal. So let's take a look. So the first thing you're going to want to do is remove the base plate, and to do that you just need to remove the 4 rubber feet here in the corners. I just loosened those earlier and put those somewhere safe, and then carefully remove the base plate. Now as you remove it, there's a little clip in there that holds the battery to the board. Now you can leave that connected if you want to use the battery for this testing. We're going to use external power so you can see inside more clearly what we're doing, so I'm just going to unclip that and remove that, and then for the test we'll connect up this external 9-volt power supply. Okay, so let's look at the adjustable components inside the pedal. So first, here is our switch block in the middle. Now you'll notice when you first get a VM Pro and you first open it up, there's some green plastic over the top of the switch block, and that's just a protective cover, and it's used during manufacturing and shipping to make sure that the switch doesn't get damaged. You can remove that if you like, or you can leave it on if you prefer. These are our 3 adjustable switches, and the control is from left to right, 1, 2, 3. Sometimes you'll see that the switches are actually labeled 3, 2, 1 and backwards, which can be a bit confusing. That just depends on the various switch vendors that we're getting these components from, and sometimes they label them a little differently. So they are going to be 1 on the left, which is our active passive switch, 2 in the middle, which is our sparkle switch, and 3 on the right, which is our fuzz compatibility switch. The default has is this setting here. So this has the active passive switch set to passive, it has sparkle switched off, and it has the fuzz compatibility disabled. So what do I want to do here? Well, normally with the active passive switch you can leave that in the default position. Even if you have active pickup guitars, you can usually get away with using that in the default position. If you have a guitar that has a very high output active pickup, you can sometimes have a condition where it starts to overload the amplifier inside the VM Pro. If you have that, then you can you'll know because you'll hear it, so just switch that switch and that will tone down the input to the amplifier level to compensate for the fact that you've got a very high output active pickup. So that's switch 1. Switch 2 is the sparkle switch. It's turned off by default. If you want to preserve the high frequency when you roll back the volume pedal, you can just enable the sparkle switch. And then the third one is the fuzz compatibility switch. If you want to use a buffered volume pedal like this in front of a fuzz, a typical transistorized fuzz will have some difficulty with that, and you may find that it sounds very loud, that it sounds slightly harsh, and that's because of the way that the buffer interacts with the input of the fuzz cable. So if you get that, if you want to use the VM Pro in front of a fuzz, you can. The buffer is still active, you'll still get the benefit of the buffer, but the fuzz pedal will operate correctly. So if you want to do that, just switch that switch for fuzz compatibility. If you're not using it in front of a fuzz, then just leave it in the default position. Alright, that's the switches. The other adjustment that you have in there is the minimum volume control, and that's this little guy here. This is the trimmer pot, and there's a little brass screw on there, and you can just insert a small screwdriver and you can turn it left and right to adjust it. The factory default is for the down position, or the heel down position, to be off. So that means that there will be no signal passing through when it's switched into the heel down position, so it will be quiet. You can adjust that in a couple of ways. You can adjust it so that you can turn it up so that the minimum position is not off, so that you can switch between a quiet signal and a loud signal instead of an off signal. You can also use it to trim very slightly the point in which the volume cuts in, and the way to do that is to plug in your guitar with the pedal in this position, play the guitar. You'll need to put it into an amplifier as well, so you can hear what's going on. and then we're going to adjust the pedal to its minimum down position, and then you can play and you can adjust this according to the movement of the pedal so that the volume kicks in just when you want it to. If you want it to kick in as soon as you move the pedal, or if you want it to kick in a little later on, you can adjust that with this switch. Now, to make this easy to see how this works, I'm going to show you how we set it up here in the Mission Factory, which we don't actually use a guitar plugged in. We connect a test signal and then we use an oscilloscope to measure the output. So I'm going to show you here how that works. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect up the scope to the output of the pedal right here. And on the input side, instead of plugging in a guitar, I have this little signal generator here, so I'm going to generate a test tone. And if we pan up to the oscilloscope, we can see our test tone, and we can see it vary in amplitude as we move the pedal up and down. So now that's in heel down, it's all the way off. As I start to move the pedal forward, we'll see that it starts to increase in volume, and then as I get all the way up, you'll see that that's the maximum volume that we have for our input signal. Yeah. Now if I put it all the way heel down, you can see on the scope that we have no signal. It's completely flatline, so nothing's passing through, and so that will be quiet. If you're testing this at home, you'll have an amplifier in and play the guitar and you should hear it completely silent. Now if I insert my screwdriver into the trimmer pot and I start to turn it to the left, you'll see that we start to get some signal come through. And I can keep turning this depending on how much signal I want to come through. To adjust it back to signal off, I'm going to rotate it right. And this is a 25 turn pot, so you're going to have to turn it a few turns for this to happen. But the advantage to that is it makes it super accurate. So I can set this, there's my heel down, it's exactly off just about there. So as soon as I start to move the pedal, I'm just going to move it ever so tiny bit, you'll see that we start to get signal come through. If I want to make it a little less sensitive than that, I can turn the screw another couple of turns to the right, and we'll see now as I move the pedal initially nothing happens, and then it starts to come through. Alright, so that's it. That's how to adjust your Mission VM Pro volume pedal.